Hello, and thank you for stopping by in this talk. My name is Nohemi Huanca-Nunez, and today I will talk to you about seed rain-successional feedbacks in wet tropical forests. This seed rain-successional feedbacks is a process that occurs in secondary forests. And secondary forests are the result of deforestation in tropical forests. As we know, most of the original extent of tropical forests has been lost to deforestation caused by fires, hurricanes, and conversion to agricultural use. Given the key role that forests played in moderating climate and ecosystem function, the understanding of how secondary forests regenerate is of critical importance. Here we focus specifically on regeneration after conversion to agricultural use and posterior abandonment, which we call hereafter human-modified landscapes. These landscapes will depend on the seeds that are arriving to them. So in this case, these seeds will become later seedlings, saplings, and trees, which means that seed dispersal is a key process that establishes the initial template for tree recruitment and can affect the recovery and the maintenance of species diversity. Yet, seed dispersal is increasingly disrupted in contemporary human-modified landscapes. Also, these seeds, seedlings, saplings, and trees are influenced by processes that regulate them as a community. For example, succession in plant communities, which has been mostly described in seedlings and trees, are considered to be shaped by two important processes, the determinism and the stochasticity. In the case of the determinism, this is viewed as a directional and orderly chain in species abundance and composition through time, with convergence towards a climate community, which will also make late successional communities to be more similar to each other. Recent studies of determinism has viewed this as principally as a function of successional niche, defined in tropical forests as a replacement series from early successional light-demanding species to late successional shade-tolerant species. On the other hand, we have stochastic processes, and these stochastic processes are described as arising from non-deterministic outcomes of ecological processes, controlling the arrival and the survival of species, which combined with priority effects will lead to idiosyncratic successional trajectories or divergent communities. In the case of seed rain, this is also affected by the previous processes. However, an important factor on the arriving of seeds is the seed source itself. So seeds coming from surrounding landscape will have important factors such as known the proximity and the species composition of the seed source, have an availability and diversity of seed dispersers, and then the landscape context will influence the movement of the seed. However, seed rain into secondary forests can also be affected by successional trajectories of the forest vegetation itself, creating seed rain successional feedback that operate in addition to successional niche. So we define here seed rain successional feedback as a deterministic assembly process. And these feedbacks are different from successional niche because successional niche arise due to the change in local environmental conditions, such as light availability. For example, the understory of older successional forests have lower light availability, which will increasingly favor the shade-tolerant species as succession proceeds. In the case of seed rain successional feedbacks, the feedback is driven particularly by species that are present in the overstory and not by changing environmental conditions. So in this case, priority effects will be magnified in human-modified landscapes. So in this study, we evaluate the strength of seed rain successional feedbacks in relation to other deterministic and stochastic processes. First, we evaluated whether seed rain in successional forests was more shaped by stochasticity or determinism with successional time. And second, we investigate how the strength of two deterministic mechanisms, successional niche and seed rain successional feedbacks, change during succession. So, in order to answer our questions, we use 5 sites of different successional ages at the OTS La Selva Biological Station, which is located here in the north part of Costa Rica. In this case, for our forest sites, and the secondary forest sites, we selected the sites based in advanced status of closed canopy, which means that even our youngest site has already an established tree canopy. We also have one mature forest, and here in the blue dot, that is used as a reference point. In these sites, we combined both time series and chronosequence approach and collected 4 years of seed rain data. So we collected data in 96 and 97 in a chronosequence ranging from 12 to 25-year-old sites. And then in the same places and the same sites 20 years later, we collected seed rains again. And in this case, the chronosequence varies from 32 to 45-year-old sites. And we also add one mature forest that is a reference point. In each of these sites, 10 traps were collected in the middle of each site, so they are 24.5 meters far from the edge. And then in all the seeds and fruits that fell down in the traps were counted and identified to the species level. And then we ran the proper analysis and found the following results. First, across all sites and time periods, we found 58,552 seeds in 178 species. We also found that the quantity of seeds did not increase with successional forest age, as we can see here in the plot A. We also didn't see major variability within months, as we can see here in the plot B. Also, the taxonomic composition of the seed rain differed across forests of different successional ages across both time periods. We can see here that the seed rain collected in 97 and 99, which is here in the red labels from A1 to D1. And these ones are clustered together in a distinct region of the ordination space compared to themselves 20 years later, which are now in the blue label from A2 to D2, which are also more close in the ordination space to the mature forest or a reference point. So in this case, we can also see that the shade-tolerant species that are in the green fonts are more prevalent in late successional sites that are this area where the mature and the late successional forest sites are present. So in order to answer specifically a research question about stochasticity and determinism, first we use null models and Chow dissimilarity indices. In this case, the y-axis is the dissimilarity index, or RCAV, and this is an index that measures beta diversity against the beta diversity that you will obtain under the assumption of stochasticity. So this is a method or a modified version of what was used by Chase and Stegen. And then in my x-axis, I have the age of the forest successional site. So in this case, if the result overlap the 0 line, then we're going to have random community assembly. If not, then we're going to have determinism. And determinism can come in two ways. The first, if it's overlapping the one positive, is deterministic divergent. In this case, the seed rain is significantly dissimilar to other traps or sites in relation to what you will expect by random assembly. And the second option will be deterministic convergent. In this case, when it's overlapping the -1 area. So this means that the seed rain is significantly more similar in relation of what you expect by random assembly. So having a research question, our design study in time series and chronosequence, then we're gonna see first the result for the chronosequence. Chronosequence, we can see here that the within site assembly process lead us to observe seed rain shifting from convergent in the early successional 12-year-old plot towards being more divergent slowly. And this is also confirmed by the positive correlation that was run here, represented in this line. Second, the time series dissimilarity or turnover within site. We can see here that the plot and the same site 20 years later has diverged, because in all the results, neither of them are overlapping 0, which means that they are divergent. The composition is more divergent of what you will expect by chance. In order to answer a second question about successional niche and seed rain successional feedbacks, first we use the mature forest as a reference point. So in this case, we compare all the secondary forests in 97, 99 to the mature forest, and all the forests in 2015 and 2017 to the mature forest. And we can see here that regardless of the similarity index used, meaning present absence, abundance weight of dominant species, in all the cases, the secondary forest site became more similar to the mature forest over time, which is consistent with the successional niche. Also consistent with successional niche, we found functional convergency by successional time as the percentage of large seeds and also shade tolerant increased by time. However, we didn't find a clear pattern in animal dispersed species. We also compare the similarity between successional forest sites, between them, only between secondary forests at 2 time points on 97, 99, 2015, and 2017. So here in this figure, we can see that there is some plots like the one represented in golden and maroon that are increasing, but the general pattern that we observe in all the cases and more clearly in the plot D is that there is a decrease in the similarity by time. So in this case, in 97, 99, the secondary forests were more similar than in 2015 and 2017, which will be also explained by seed rain successional feedback, which is described here. So in this case, we have in the y-axis, number of seeds, and in the x-axis, number of trees, and each point represents a species. So we can see here that the correlation is increasing with successional time. As we can see here that the old successional sites and the mature forests, which are here inside the blue box, have a higher correlation, significant correlation, marked here by the crosses over. So in this case, they are all significant of what they were 20 years before. So 20 years before here with the red dots, we can see that they don't have a strong relationship, and then 20 years later, they do. So this is consistent with the increasing importance of successional feedback by time. Also, we measure the proportion of immigrant seeds, and we found that they decline significantly with successional age, which also will confirm seed rain successional feedback. So we expect that the strain of this seed rain successional feedback should increase with the degree of human modification. So in this case, seed rain successional feedback will increase similarly as increased by successional time from low to high, because human modification of the landscape will involve processes such as deforestation and reduction in matrix permeability, which will affect the movement of the seeds. This increased strain of seed rain successional feedbacks will be driven by the declining proportion of immigrant seeds that are here in the dashed line. This process will have consequence for the spatial heterogeneity of the plant composition when you compare between secondary forest sites composition. So in this case, this will mean that we're going to have increasing convergency through succession in less human-modified landscapes, as deforested sites will recover faster and receive many seeds from larger proportion of the regional species pool. Because in this case, more seed sources will be near, and the dispersal agents will still be able to move freely between deforested and the regenerated areas. In the case of B, increasing divergency through succession, so this will happen when landscapes are more human-modified, because in this case, many seed sources will be out of the reach of the deforested site, and so regeneration will become more strongly influenced by priority effects and within seed rain as succession proceeds. As a result, seed rain successional feedbacks will create greater spatial divergency in plant community composition among the secondary forest sites. And lastly, in places that are most severe human modification, in this case, seed rain successional feedback should promote increasing convergency between successional sites, and because the seed rain composition of the adult tree will be strongly constrained to represent the most well-dispersed and generally species from the species pool. So in summary, if the imprint of seed rain successional feedback persists to the seedling and later life stages, then secondary forests in human-modified landscapes should continue to diverge as succession proceeds, which will create a historical contingent landscape for forest sites in compositional dissimilar stages. So in conclusion, we found that seed dispersal, which is often considered to be highly stochastic, here we saw also that there is an increase in determinism as succession proceeds. And second, seed rain successional chains that are influenced by convergency and divergency. And in this case, we saw that successional niche promote convergency, and seed rain successional feedback may promote divergency. And third, we hypothesized that seed rain successional feedback may become even more influential in these increasingly human-modified tropical forest landscapes. With that, I want to thank you, all the field assistants and my advisor, collaborators, lab members, and my funding sources that have collaborated and make this project possible.